Hello.
Sorry.
Mhm.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Hey,
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
good morning. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning. So we are just letting everyone come on in the room and we will get started. And if you're not muted, if you'll go ahead and put yourself on mute, we're getting a little feedback. I know we all know how that goes.
Ms.
All
Gordon,
right.
the sheriff just called me and said that he's trying to get on. Some reason the link's not working, so his assistant's working on it right now to try and get it working.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. A lot of familiar faces, but I'm LaShawn Gordon. I get the pleasure of being the program director at UPHS. Membership and engagement is kind of my thing. And so we are excited to have you all today. We also have with us Larry Bourdeau from the Sheriff Department, and he's actually the director of reentry programs. And so say hey, Larry.
How you doing, everybody? Nice to meet you. Thanks for being here.
So one of the reasons why we wanted to have this conversation today, Amber and I have actually been working with the sheriff's office quite a bit in the last several months in different capacities. But one of the reasons why we wanted to have this conversation today is because of the sheriff's heart to really kind of take a different approach when it comes to criminal justice. And as a lot of you all know, that does involve really connecting individuals to the nonprofit, the human service sector. And so there's one thing to just kind of put things out there in the community, but we really wanted you to have an opportunity to hear from the sheriff and his team, just to hear a little bit about their heart today, and then kind of really continue to have that conversation about how we all can work together. While the sheriff is getting logged on, I wanted to give Larry an opportunity just to kind of talk a little bit about what the team looks like at the sheriff's office. I don't know how familiar you all are, but you know, in the last couple of years, the sheriff has really done an amazing job of making sure that the team is diversified in terms of skill set, and making sure that multiple people aren't wearing multiple hats, but people are wearing the right hat so that they can focus on their individual programs. So Larry, if you'll just kind of get us started with that, and as the sheriff come on, we'll get him flowing into the conversation.
Absolutely. So thank you very much for that, LaShawn, for that introduction. And thank you all for being here. As LaShawn mentioned, under Sheriff McNeil's direction, we have taken great strides to grow a program that we think is worthy of world-class status, and we continually work upon it. Some of the changes, let me tell you what reentry looks like with the Leon County Sheriff's Office. It consists of different divisions now, all under the same roof. And so that includes classifications, that includes inmate programs, that includes pathways, which is our old work camp that we've renamed to and repurposed for program pathways in our chaplaincy program. So you have all four of those sections that are working very closely together, to for the betterment of successful transitions back into our population back into society. We've got a very distinct partnership, first of its kind for a sheriff's office, with the Department of Corrections for their CNIS Light assessment. And what we seek to do is use our classification officers and our programs case managers have all been trained by the Department of Corrections in the use of the assessment to facilitate that with our inmate population. We're then in turn using that assessment and the results of the assessment to create a transition plan. And that transition plan is then used as a roadmap of how we're going to bring people to the services that they need in order to have that better success as they reintegrate back into society. We've also created what's called the RISE Center, and the RISE Center is now our continuum of care portal, where we're going to continue to offer those services even post-incarceration to those that were incarcerated here at our facility. Perhaps they came from their released from JARC, the Juvenile Assessment Receiving Center, and coming back into Leon County. Department of Corrections releasees coming back to Leon County, and of course Federal Department of Corrections, anyone coming back to Leon County. So although due to COVID we are not open yet, we are ready as soon as we can get this COVID past us. But much of what we were here today to discuss with you all is how we put that all together, because I think one of the big things that we want to do here, that the sheriff has a passion for diverting those in mental health crises and those with substance abuse from the criminal justice system, and getting them the help and pairing them with the service provider that they so desperately need. I know that, as we grow our network, our spirit network, and really and truly that's, when you hear from the sheriff today, he's going to talk about, our spirit platform, which is what we're using as our community wellness platform. That's going to enable us, when you say to yourself, is that a sheriff's department initiative? Why is the sheriff's department involved in that? And I would say that for us to do anything together, we need to break down those silos of working independent of each other and work together in order to make this happen. So, when we talk about lessening or reducing recidivism, improving people's ability to have successful transitions, that takes a village, right? It's many years we've been saying that although the responsibility of responding to those in mental health crisis has fell on the law enforcement community, I believe that we've all realized, and it's what we've been saying all along, that really and truly it does. Those folks don't belong in the criminal justice system. That's not the answer. The answer is getting them the services that they so desperately need while they're in that crisis, and being able to do that while they're in crisis. Actually coming up with programs where we can identify people before they hit the crisis, right? And be able to pair them with service providers that they so desperately need, really and truly. So that's kind of an overview, LaShawn, of what we have in the works now. But we quite honestly, we realize we need you all. And we want to be able to partner with you and your agencies in order to do these things for the community. Because when we work together, we're much stronger and we're going to be much more successful.
So just kind of jumping in here a little bit, and there's a lot of people on the phone. I think one of the things that, kind of often, I mean, I know I've worked in social services for many years, and just from a social work perspective, I think there's a lot of stigma that comes along with law enforcement, just the word, police, law enforcement, sheriff's office. And I know you all are really, you kind of mentioned it. You said, hey, we need you all. So I know you all are kind of really trying to deal with a lot of those, myths, and just kind of rebrand yourselves in a lot of ways. Can you talk a little bit about that? And if anybody has any questions about that, because you all work with clients every day, feel
Hold
free
on
to
one
put them
second.
in the
This
chat,
goes
and we'll
not.
definitely go ahead.
Hold on one second.
So Larry is probably on the phone with the sheriff who is trying to get in. Are there any questions or anything that has come up for anyone while he's talking?
Hi, LaShawn, this is Cecka, and hello to everyone. So I will tell you from the point of view of CHS, while we are, or let me say, in our role as the case management organization for foster care and adoptions and independent living here in Circuit 2, which is Leon County and Jefferson County, um, there definitely is a disconnect between how the system works regarding children who are in foster care or available for adoption, um, and whose custody they are in, and the statutes, laws, and SOPs that go along with that versus law enforcement and what the law is when it comes to what is legal. And so I will give you an example. When we have a youth whose parental rights have been terminated, but is still in communication with a parent who clearly has a bit of a crisis themselves, and the child has a mental health crisis as well, and is in communication and has run away to that parent's home. Law enforcement is called out. The parent says, yes, I'm the parent. He says, yes, I'm the child. This is where I want to be. Our team is there saying, you can't be here. The police is saying, yes, he can. Mm-hmm. Because the police is not aware that that child's rights have been terminated. The parent's rights have been terminated. He or she is now in the custody of the state. And so that is not a situation where we can try to educate the police officers or law enforcement on how this works, because the child cannot be there, because that technically is not the parent anymore. And so what I would be hoping is that we can get into a space where we can educate law enforcement on the laws and statutes surrounding the dependency system, so that we can better partner when it comes to our children who are either criminally involved, or when we have to have law enforcement come out because we've got a child that may be out of control, may be having a mental health issue, and not just taking that child's word for what may be going on, but rather look to the child welfare professional as the keeper of the information regarding that case.
Yeah, so Miss Green, excellent statement and question there. Really and truly, the answer lies in the partnership, and you are absolutely correct. We are constantly in law enforcement trying to partner and make ourselves better educated and better partners with the correct people. And really and truly, that's why today I'm excited to see this many people from a behavioral health standpoint that are interested in potentially doing that with us. because that's exactly what our spirit portal does, is it brings us all to the same place. It will track things for us, help keep us focused. And absolutely, Miss Green, I'm going to take you, your organization, and everyone else's organization that has that kind of information that will help make us be better protectors and keepers of the peace out on the road. So everything that you said is absolutely correct. We really look forward to that type of partnership where it includes the training, the education components, because that makes us better. And everything that you just said, this Spirit platform is with all of our deputies. So when they go out and they respond to these calls, they've got access to these referrals real time to all of you that would be service providers. And when all that gets set up, these are the conversations that we have. So it's set up correctly. It drills down just the right way so that we pair the correct person with the right services. So yeah, I think everything that you just said is absolutely correct, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. That's very exciting. I appreciate that.
And LaShawn, I believe we've got the sheriff on board now.
I see him. Hello, Sheriff. How are you?
I am just fantastic. Sorry about the technical issues. I'm using my phone, my desktop wouldn't work this morning.
It is okay. We have all been there as we are navigating this real unusual world. I like to be in person, but we make it do what it do. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So everybody, the sheriff is here, of course. I've actually known the sheriff for a really, really long time. When he was with TPD, when he worked for DJJ, and he and I have served on panels and actually got a chance to be blessed to work with him in a lot of different capacities. And he's a person that definitely has a servant's heart. So we are very excited to have you here today. Sheriff, when we started having conversations with Larry, one of the things that was very important to Amber and myself was for the sector to kind of really hear your heart. We know your heart. We interact with you all the time. And a lot of people may not know that a big part of what you do in the little free time you have is kind of just dive all into the community. And so we really wanted you to kind of just talk a little bit about your vision. When you became the sheriff, you immediately said, we're going to go all in. And that's really stakeholders working together for the power of the collective in a very collaborative way. And I know as we're, looking at Spirit and some of the other big initiatives you all have going on, it's just important for people to hear that background information and how we got to where we are today. So wanted to give you an opportunity to do that and also, give people a chance to ask questions as well. So I want to turn it over to you and thank Larry, who did a great job kind of starting off by talking about reentry and responding to Cecka's question, because really and truly, we do need law enforcement to have a good understanding of all of the human service agencies. So I'm going to turn it over to you now, Sheriff.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the introduction. I want everybody there to know that this is one of those passionate things that I do, and not only am I passionate about trying to make sure that we connect in the right way with our community, but to make sure that our deputies and all of our staff understand the importance of all of us working together to solve some of these problems. I don't believe that arrest is the solution for most of the issues that ail our communities. And if there's opportunities for us to figure out how we can divert persons from coming deeper into the criminal justice system, particularly trying to divert the cliche of from the schoolhouse to the jailhouse, is what sort of motivates me in some respects. And you mentioned the fact that I was the Secretary of the Department of Juvenile Justice. So I have a really good understanding, and also the Secretary of the Department of Corrections. So I have a really good understanding of the detrimental aspects of persons going deeper and deeper into our system. And my passion is with our kids. So I believe that if we can have those interventions early on, particularly in post-social kind of situation with our youth, that all the data and the research that I've done indicates that if we can have interventions in those adverse childhood experiences, that we can perhaps turn those children around. And that means that we focused on domestic violence situations in a way that we try to identify. Normally when a deputy goes to a house or a home and has a domestic violence situation, the issue is just to make the arrest and separate the people who are involved in the altercation. But ours is a little more complicated than that. We try to find out how many kids are in that household and how many have experienced those adverse childhood experiences. And then we try to get help. And that's why those social service organizations are so important to us, is that we can have a handoff that's something different than law enforcement. A handoff going to a detention facility isn't an answer. Perhaps it is for some situations, but we don't believe that's the best answer. So we're trying to partner with social service organizations. One of the things that I've learned in the research, again, is that it's important that we find occupations and our jobs for kids. Now, some of the research also tells me and informs me that we have to make sure it's the right types of jobs. If you get a child who gets the wrong type job, that is, if we're reinforcing, digging ditches and doing yard work, then we're not perhaps doing everything we can to get that child moving in the right direction. So we're looking for quality type jobs. And that's why we partner with, and I've been really excited about the fact that all three chambers in town have partnered with us in terms of trying to identify jobs. We've got 1,000 jobs initiative that we're looking at. And quite honestly, I've been excited about the fact we've got business people giving me a call and saying, we've got some job openings and we'd like to offer those to your kids that you guys identify. So just from a crime perspective, crime fighting perspective, we believe that we can accomplish a number of things. Obviously, first is that we want to drive crime down. We want to stop the number of African-American kids, now be specific about this, the number of Black kids killing Black kids, Black on Black crime, if you will. So we want to stop that to the extent that we can. And the way we believe we can do that is to offer alternatives to drugs in our community by getting those kids gainfully employed and doing other things, with an understanding that in many cases, and I've had these experiences talking to kids, this is just something I'm thinking about. This is what I've learned from some of the kids we come in contact with, is that they're the breadwinners in some instances for their entire family. And when they have summer jobs and those summer jobs stop, then the family's kind of at a loss. And those kids then turn sometimes to a life of crime. So our ALLin initiative is that platform that I'm sure that Larry has talked about, to bring all the social service organizations together, working with our law enforcement partners. And ours is one that's quite honestly pretty, it's not easy, but it's the part of this process by which we try to help identify these youth in our community, and then try to connect those youth with the businesses in our community. And this is all, again, about driving down crime. I think one of the questions asked to me is, why is the sheriff's office doing this? And is this a political ploy or something like that? And I can tell you, it's the furthest thing from being anything political. This is about our caring about our community. And I'll just be real blunt about this too. I'm a Black man, and I'm very much concerned about the Black youth of our community. So let me just stop there and see if there are any questions.
I don't see if any in the chat, but if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and the sheriff will be happy to answer them.
I don't have a question. This is Carrie Tyree from 211 Big Bend. I've been lucky enough to hear the sheriff speak at a lot of different venues, and I know it's coming from his heart. There's no political agenda, so I just wanted to say that. We have a relationship with the EMS when they go out on a run and they see that there's something going on other than a health emergency. We have a relationship where they will forward a referral to us for other types of needs, obviously with the patient's permission. And that's things like if they come across a hoarder situation or an elderly person that seems like they might need some more assistance other than EMS. And that relationship has worked so well over the last, I think, 10 or 12 years. So I see that type of relationship forming with the Sheriff's Department and TPD as well. We do get a lot of hotline calls from people that are trying to re-enter into society. And those are the calls that are closest to my heart, because you get someone on the phone that feels like they can be vulnerable. And especially men that don't normally get to speak so honestly about their fears about not having opportunities. And there's so often they call themselves, I'm a felon. And I say, you are not a felon. You're a man that's committed a felony. That's not your identity. And then they just start to peel away those layers and talk honestly about what's going to happen, how are they going to take care of their families and themselves. So anything we can do as a group, we're going to help the community and ultimately the society we want to live in. That's my spiel.
Thank you, Carrie. We appreciate those positive, that positive feedback. My colleague and our executive director, Amber Tynan, has joined us. We're tag teaming today. We got a bunch of stuff going on all day, but I think she has a question for you, Sheriff.
All right.
do. And thank you, LaShawn and Sheriff and Larry. Thank you so much for everything you not only do for our community, but to keep us safe. It's been a delight to work with you all. My question is, we've heard a lot recently, we've had some presentations locally specific to Cahoots and the programming out of Oregon and really incorporating the social work aspect into policing. I know I've heard you speak at Leon County Commission meetings about incorporating a lot of that trauma-informed care and training into the work of your deputies. So just curious to see how that's coming along, as well as how us human service agencies can really help to support you and your officers to see that vision to fruition.
Well, we're still in the process of, and thank you for the question, and thank you all for what all you do. We're still in the process of trying to build that delivery system. Now TPD has already started a program where they are, I think they're putting a police officer with a EMS person, and then they respond to a call. Now we're in the process working with Appalachia, where we will not only, or we'll do it a little differently. We'll actually have a deputy and a mental health worker in the same vehicle together, and they will respond as calls come in, taking off some of the other models, in particular the model that I saw in Richmond, Virginia, where their police chief, we had him here on a Zoom call, and he presented and talked about the great things they're doing there. But those are still in process. We've got a budget request coming up for the staffing to do that. And we believe it's a lot less expensive to have a mental health person work with us than to have the situation where we think it's more effective to have the response in the field going to the call rather than waiting for the call to come in. So we're doing it a little bit differently, but either way we do it, I think it's better than what we have been, which is just law enforcement trying to take care of those issues. I will also indicate to you that we are working with Appalachia to build a mental health component here in the Leon County Sheriff's Office, where we believe that 40% of the people that we have in our detention facility are suffering some level of mental health issue. And we're trying to create an environment where it's where we can, as we arrest a person that commits a crime, identify with a mental health problem, that we then, Larry and his staff will work in terms of trying to make sure that all the needs that that person has, if it's anxiety, if it's depression, that we work on that while they're in our institution, in our detention facility. But once they leave, there's always been a disconnect. And what we're now trying to do is to make sure there's a continuum of care that exists beyond the gates of our facility, and we're working with Appalachia to make that a reality. We'll be putting a bid on the streets here, hopefully pretty soon, within the next 6 to 12 months, where we'll try to bid that out and see. I'm almost sure Appalachia will get it, just based on the fact that they're regional and they're probably the only mental health facility that can provide the service that we're looking for. And we're also talking about building a mental health pod that is a place internal to our detention facility that will deal more effectively with Horizon, our provider, in terms of trying to make sure we identify. And the biggest, well, I shouldn't say the biggest, one of the ongoing problems is the number or amount of medication that the person receives as they exit. Usually we give them 3 to 4 days worth of medication. And obviously, once that medication's up, then they usually go back and commit a crime just to get back in our detention facility, get their medication. So we're trying to resolve some of that and have that continuity take place. Really excited about what we're trying to do. We believe that, and I base this on my experience with the Department of Correction. We were able through our reentry efforts there at the Department of Corrections in 1 year. We dropped the recidivism rate by 5% in a state institution. And without all the bells and whistles and problems associated with the state system, I think we can do a lot better locally if we can put the interventions in place. So we're hoping once we get this in place to see the recidivism rate specifically related to mental health go down significantly. That's the goal and the desire.
Well, I know we have another question, but I just want to thank you for your foresight and your vision for this, to really look at this systemically and what barriers do exist that could be broken down fairly easily with partnerships and incorporating the human service ecosystem. And I want it to be on record that anything that we can do to help advance your work, please let us know. We are here to do this very work, and we thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to tell you guys, Larry has just started working on this, but we are, the word's gotten out in terms of what we're trying to do. And we've got a businessman in Madison who I was on the phone with before I got on with you all, talking about 30 to 40 and almost 100 jobs that he thinks his packing plant can create for us. I mean, and those are jobs that you start out maybe $15 an hour. But he's talking about some of the jobs getting to $40,000, $80,000 a year type jobs, because he's got that kind of processing plant where they have upward mobility in the work they do. So we're excited about that. And that's one of the things I want to emphasize. We're not talking about cutting grass and digging ditches. We're talking about quality jobs for these young people in our community.
Absolutely. That sounds amazing. People probably start messaging us right away saying, make sure you get us that information. So that's awesome to hear. We actually have 3 questions. So excited about those questions coming in, and we'll start with Ms. Whitehead. And then after that, we'll go to Yolanda.
Good day, all. I have 2 questions. One is, where does parental involvement and parental accountability connect with your ALLin projects, Chief?
Well, thank you. One of the things we do, and I have my cards around here somewhere, we, through our school resource deputies, we try to first, if a kid's in trouble in school, that's when we come in contact with them. We then try to reach out. I send a letter to the family. Usually it's a mom who's a single parent in the situation we get engaged in. And I send this letter and card. I've got it around here somewhere. Card basically asks the parent, Johnny was in trouble. Is there anything that going on that you think we can help you with? And here are the things that we can provide you. We can do anger management. We can do after school. We can do athletic programs. We can do some mentoring. So we list those 4 or 5 things out, and we put others and ask, is there anything we can help you with in that regard? And we then, it's a postcard, so they send the postcard back self-addressed, they send it back to us. And then we try to take the information that the parents got, we set up a meeting with the parent in that regard. And we didn't take it from there in terms of what the child needs. The other thing that we try to do is we have something called Back on Track. And this is a relationship we have with the State Department of Juvenile Justice. And the State Department of Juvenile Justice identifies this kid and these families and says, here's a kid that we think has a chance of getting his or her life turned around. And then we meet with the parent and the child, and we ask what's going on here. And parent, mom, dad, are you willing to have this child participate in our Back on Track program? And Back on Track is really a simplistic thing where we take our deputy and the youth, and we put them in a little semicircle. And the deputy and the kids, no uniforms, no guns, just people, and they converse and have a conversation. We allow the kid to talk about, whatever. Most of the time, they don't want to talk at all that first few hours. And then we have dinner, and we sit down at dinner with the child, and we talk about, what's going on. And then we have another session where they loosen up a little bit, we think, at that point. And we tell stories. Like if I was there, I'd tell about why I became a police officer and how when I was a black kid, the white police car came on the bus and beat us up and got us off the bus. And so they start to relate to us. They see that we're not too different than they are. And then if that program works pretty good, we try to then transition from the Back on Track to what we call Worship with Me. Worship with Me is an initiative where we try to get the churches involved with the family. And we ask the parents and the church if they'd be willing to go to 2 services. It's volunteer. They don't have to go. But we ask that they just go to 2 services at the church with this minister and see what that's like. And right now we haven't had any significant data points because we've only kicked this off. This is probably going into the COVID kind of kicked us off because the church is all closed. So we were going into a year, but we hope to kick that off once the churches and COVID's under control. But that all those initiatives, those 3 things I talked about are all parent-centric.
Thank you, Sheriff. Very, very thorough answer. Yolanda Pourciau had a question next, and then we'll go to Dr. McKendrick.
Hello, everybody. I'm Yolanda Pourciau. Thank you so much for allowing for this conversation. I think it's really important that we have access to leaders in law enforcement. I have a concern. I feel like there's some things that are going on structurally in terms of biases. I really get the perspective of looking at African-American communities and families, and in particular teenagers. But I also wish that we could begin to, especially in Black History Month, to look at the historical structural realities for African-Americans of all ages and have that consideration, not only historically what's going on, but there's a lot of evidence to support the fact that we may be Black people dealing with certain biases that really transcend our behaviors. And I think we need to simultaneously look at structural racism as we look at the behaviors that we consider criminal in these communities. The other thing I'll just say, and I don't think it was intentional, but it lands certain ways for some of us, the idea of Black on Black crime. People tend to criminalize within their own race. I'm a little uncomfortable that it tends to be highlighted when African Americans do it. And so just, I think that cops have the sophistications, police, sheriffs have the sophistications to look at both micro and macro realities and to respond to both. And so I'd like to hear you say a little bit of something about structural racism in criminal justice.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And let me start out by addressing the issue of my language with respect to Black on Black crime. Sometimes it's the most, the simplest way to articulate the circumstance or the issue that we're trying to deal with. But I certainly agree with you on a structural level, and what that means. Because I'm one of the persons who led the effort to stop the Black on Black crime conference that we had here in the state of Florida for like 20, 30 years. We had a Black on Black conference every year that spoke to just Black on Black crime. And I made the same observation you did, that from a systems perspective or structural perspective, I didn't believe that we were doing a good service to our community by simply calling this a Black on Black crime conference, that it should be looked at more holistically than that. But to your point, I certainly agree that there are so many structural issues that have been built over the years with respect to law enforcement response to the African American community, or communities in general. And I think there are some mindsets that also exist that people sometimes unaware that they're even acting out on those environmentally trained impulses. So I'm very much aware of those. I think we are, I serve in a lot of capacities. I wasn't sure we'd get to this discussion today because I was thinking we were talking more about kids and jobs, but this is a discussion that I had I am having all over the place. Particularly on yesterday, I had a discussion with I'm the past president of the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and we're looking at all sorts of structural adjustments or changes that need to take place. Since we're on this now, but there's a lot of hue and cry for citizen reviews and those sorts of things, and I'm of the opinion that it's deeper than simply talking about citizen review processes. I think we have to talk about law enforcement organizational structural processes that citizen reviews are after the fact. I think there are some things that should take place in the context of the police agency itself. Who are the people that do the investigations? Should they in fact be police officers themselves, or should they be civilians as opposed to policing themselves, sort of things? We're looking at our language that we use in terms of force. We talk about our use of force policies. I've advocated that we shouldn't talk about use of force because it reemphasizes the use of force, when in fact what we're trying to do is resolve resistance to force. And so there are a lot of systematic, structural kind of language and things that we have that, as you just said, not only do African Americans like myself who've been in this industry for a long time, not sometimes realize what that language is and how it's impacting. And so we are having those discussions, and those, I think, are, when you start talking about systems and structures, those are much more difficult issues to kind of wrestle to the ground, because it's not, as the sheriff of Leon County, I can make all kinds of structural changes and policy changes, but it doesn't begin to change the culture of the profession itself. And so at another level, we've been trying to make sure that these discussions are taking place so that you can have, at some point, universal agreement on how we deal with some of these structural issues. And lastly, I'll just point to, and maybe you all aren't aware of, but when President Obama became president, one of the first things he did was put together a commission, and I served on those commissions, not the big one, but on a smaller work group. And we came up with 21st century policing, and there are 6 pillars of 21st century policing that all of us are working on to more effectively bring about constitutional policing, as we say. And that's something that many people aren't aware of, but that's what we're trying to impact from a structural perspective. And that was a long way around trying to address a very complicated question.
No, that was really good, Sheriff. So one, we're going to invite you to our DE&I task force. So Cecka and Yolanda, make note of that, because diversity, equity, inclusion is so important as we talk about those structural changes that's needed. But one of the things that we really wanted to do with this conversation is we wanted the sector to really see your heart. And so thank you for, being transparent and just allowing yourself to be open and vulnerable. Amber and I actually got a chance to co-facilitate a strategic planning session with the sheriff and his entire leadership team. So we've seen him behind the scenes, the way he lead, and this is just kind of his character and who he is. So thank you, Sheriff, for just being open today. We're gonna flow into Dr. McKendrick's question. She's trying to get off mute. There she go.
Hi. Oh, I thought you were going to read it, is what it was.
Oh, no, ma'am. I can read it if you want me to.
No, I was, hi, Sheriff. I did, in fact, do, before COVID, volunteer work with the inmate programs there. And so, but it was just as a FAMU professor assisting the woman there and helping getting that going. So I do know your heart. I just had a question about when you all have a domestic violence call. I know first thing is safety for everyone. So the children and the victim are, everything separated. After that, what happens to children who are now traumatized by this? Are they referred for mental health counseling? Is that through Spirit? Because I'm the executive director of Turnabout also. So we do trauma, and we're a part of that whole Spirit thing, Spirit network. We've been, I think, when you guys first started it. But I was wondering, with those children, are they referred for help? Because if we can nip it in the bud, which is what I'm hearing you say, with children, we can nip violence in the bud with looking at what those, you talked about the ACEs using trauma-informed care, then we're on our way well to diminishing what you all have to end up doing.
Well, thank you again for the question. That's one of the things that I started immediately upon getting here. One, and I'll try to describe it a little bit better. When we go to a domestic violence call now, the deputy's responsibility is to get there, make an assessment. The criminal stuff, they're going to do anyway. They know what to do with that. But if there are children involved, what I've asked our deputies to do, obviously we can't, if there's no reason for us to take the children from the house, we can't do that unless there's a reason. If there's another adult there, if we arrest the father, for example, and the mom's still there. And so we then try to make sure we get that information to the Linn County schools. We say, okay, primarily in that we want to try to prevent this child from, you've seen this horrific event take place on Friday. You're going to school on Monday. You're still dealing with the trauma of what you just saw. And sometimes we don't realize when Johnny gets to school on Monday and he's to himself, kind of moody, and somebody says something and Johnny, strikes out. So we now try to make sure we get that information to the school, not so that they can arrest Johnny. We try to get that information to the psychologist, psychiatrist, whomever the healthcare provider is at the school, and say, this is what happened with Johnny this weekend. We need you guys to get. Now, the problem is with that is once we do that, we have no idea what the follow-up is. Because then it becomes a medical issue that the school's now dealing with, and we have, but we're trying to make sure we get that handoff that's taking place. Now, we do ask our school resource deputy. We have a deputies in the field. Now, the resource deputy knows about Johnny's situation from a law enforcement perspective, not from the medical, but from the law enforcement. And now we ask that school resource deputy to make sure that he's interacting with Johnny and understanding that Johnny has some issues going on. And to do that, now we've got to make sure ourselves that the deputies in the field are trained and understand what their responsibilities are, and then what the school resource deputies' responsibilities are. And I can tell you that, all people aren't equal. All people don't see things the same way. And so we're working on trying to get that in and understand as well, these are major departures from the historical way of going about policing in our community. And so it's not I don't want you to sit here and believe that I'm saying everybody does this right. I can tell you that, we have to say, hey, Johnny, you are deputy so-and-so. That wasn't exactly the way we wanted that to happen. But we're working on it.
Thank you. So one last question, Sheriff, and then I have a couple things that I want to cover real quick. One of the questions that I think is very important because we've seen this come up all across the country, and that's working with those individuals that are autistic, because looking at them, you may just say, hey, it's a regular, normal person. Do your officers receive any specialized training for working with those with autism?
Yes and no. Just to be honest with you, we've touched the tip of the iceberg on that problem. We've talked to our deputies about realizing that some of the kids with autism, when you say take your hands out of your pockets, they might not understand that. From a encounter perspective, we've talked about things that kids with autism may do that for you may look like it's a threat, and they won't follow your directions and that sort of thing. Trying to make sure they understand and what the signs to look for. But I will tell you that that's only a recent occurrence. That's a lot of work that we've got to do, and you all know this. The spectrum is so different. So you can't say that, all the time that when a kid has his hands in his pocket and won't take them out when you're talking to him, that kid has autism. So it's a really difficult area for us to kind of dove into, but we are trying to get there. Again, we've only kind of scratched the surface in that regard. And I've heard from the parents and others about that. And, I had a conversation with one lady and said, well, can we put a band around their wrist, something, an orange band or a bracelet of some type? And they don't want to do that because that then identifies the kid for other people to pick on. And so that's a difficult one for us to kind of get a handle on.
Thank you. So Sheriff and Larry, we have a lot of people in the chat box and people who just reached out personally. One of the things that Amber and I have, over the last year, we've really enjoyed working with a lot of new human service agencies, new nonprofit agencies. And for those that are wanting to connect and partner with you all and bring in resources, can we talk a little bit about what's the process? Is Larry the contact person? How would you all prefer that handled?
I can tell you it's not me, so it must be Larry.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do. That's what we're looking to do is bring all of your resources together to one platform, which we put out there as Spirit, as our community wellness platform. And yes, you would contact me. If we get quite a few of you all from the human services sector, that want to come aboard, we'll get with Spirit. We'll seek to identify the specific services that you want to provide. We will also identify training opportunities, for both Leon County Sheriff's Office and for you all. And then that helps us create that part of the portal in Spirit that would give us access to be able to refer our clients to you all, as well as be able to track and make sure that they did get the services that they needed. It is very customizable. We are able to make sure that the information that you all have, and let me say this before I forget to say it, because I don't want to forget to say this. We are not looking to take over a case management system that you all believe in and you're using and it's going well. There are certain ways that we could bring you aboard on Spirit if you have a case management system already that you're already using and it's functioning well, to be able to accept the referrals from us in the Spirit platform. However, if for some reason you may not be happy with your current case management system, or you need a robust case management system that works for you, our case management system, Spirit, is free to you all as a service provider of ours. Don't fall back on that adage, if it's free, what's the catch? There is no catch. We have committed the financial resources to make sure that this is available to all of you all. And really and truly taking silos out of it. We want to make sure that we're not operating in silos, that we're actually able to work together, and Spirit really works and seeks to help us overcome that.
Awesome, thank you. So I know it was a couple of questions that we did not get to, but I do want to let you all know that we are, as I said earlier, we're planning to invite the sheriff and Larry to one of our DEI meetings to kind of really have some conversation about perceptions and that sort of thing. And also, if you're an agency that is looking to schedule an appointment with the sheriff's office to talk about your program and the services that you provide, you can email that to me and I'll make sure that I forward that to Larry, just kind of as a FYI to the sheriff, because we know he's super busy, but just to really, really build out those relationships. That's what it's really all about, right? We're all working to collectively serve the community. And so we want to work together better. And the only way we can do that is to really build relationships with each other. So please email me if you're interested in setting up one of those meetings. What does SPIRIT stand for everybody on the call?
It is Suppression, Prevention, Intervention, Referral Tool, SPIRIT.
So we are about 1 minute till 11 o'clock. And if you know me, I'm very anal about time, starting and stopping on time. Sheriff, any last minute comments before we close out for the day? And Larry, if you can put what SPIRIT stands for in the chat, please, while the sheriff gives his final comments.
Well, first of all, thank you all for your interest in what is so important from my perspective in our community. This is about the quality of life of Leon County. I know that you're all aware of the ACEs issues and a 304 zip code. From my perspective, these are all playing into, I think it's just been a godsend in terms of all these things occurring at the same time. The Children's Services Council being approved. And I do believe we can work together in this community. We can make some really significant strides in increasing the quality of life for all of our citizens. We can engage our business community in bringing jobs to Tallahassee, Leon County. So I'm very optimistic, and I'm looking forward to just having the opportunity to meet all of you all and talk more. I think the more we talk to the community, the better off we're going to be. And when we do that, I think we can build trust. And I think that's one of the most important things about our working together, is understanding that we all trying to do the same thing with the same outcomes and build that trust and belief in each other. So thank you all for giving me the chance to talk. And I'm just looking forward to all you guys being all in with the Leon County Sheriff's Office.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So thank you very much again, everybody, for joining us today. We did record the conversation. So if you need a recording of that, feel free to reach out to me. And when it's downloaded, I will send that to you. Again, if you'd like to connect with Larry and the team, please send that to me as well. We communicate all the time and I forward those to him. And you all have a great day. And we hope to see you next week at our membership meeting. So take care and we will talk to you later.
Thank you
Bye.
all.
Bye. Thank you all.
Bye.